Welcome to your inspirational astrology horoscope for this new moon in Pisces, March 18th through the 19th, 2026. I'm astrologer Dave Palmer, the Leo King, here to illuminate the collective consciousness. Well, thanks so much for being a part of highvibe.tv. If you're not, make sure that you definitely join. Of course, all of our apps on every network. You can just search High Vibe TV. Or you could check out the leokingai.com for all 4 AI projects, including Hypergate, which of course is the only real astrology AI out there that's so badass. We have the mobile apps just about to come out. We've had, I think, 100 testers on that one right now. Or you can use Spirit Dial with, of course, Lady Avalon, the live psychic AI avatar, and many more aspects to that. Or watch for free and get the astrology news that's decoded for what's about to happen through every news story that happens every hour by going to beyondtheveil.ai. All of that's at the leokingai.com. Well, it's good to be with you all. Happy new moon in Pisces. This is going to be an interesting horoscope. This is definitely a weird and massive time. To say the word transformation is, I think, not good enough. I think it takes time to get to where we are at. So there's been massive amount of patience. There's been massive amount of, dare I say, lifetimes waiting for this moment in the time that we call now. And I think that's a good way to kind of start how we're going to look at this new moon. Of course, we know we have the equinox that's coming up. We have Mercury that's going to station direct finally, while the sun will make its ingress into Aries for the equinox. So this new moon in Pisces is odd to say the least, because of the fact that it does not come with what we actually want, which is typical Pisces, and especially the end of Pisces. It's always that delay. So I know that most people think Mercury retrogrades are delay. Well, you add a Mercury retrograde in Pisces, you have it with a new moon at the end of Pisces, before all planets are direct, before we come into our first Sun-Neptune conjunction in Aries, before all these big changes. Even though we've been in massive change, this new moon is testing us in many ways, and also saying goodbye. It's the biggest goodbye of the world in which we knew, but it's the more of the realization of, we thought we knew what the world was. Now, actually, we really didn't. It was a smoke screen in many ways, right? Man, I don't want to do that. Let me try this. Hold on. All right, let's do this. Then let's push sheets. There we go. Thank you, Astro Golden. All right. Let me pull this up so we can dive deep together into this. So this new moon is the last new moon at 28 degrees. We've been having these since around Halloween, right? When we came into 28 degree new moons. This is the last one. So if you think about us coming in basically into that October period, which was really weird because we would then go into a Mercury retrograde in November. That was a Mercury retrograde in Sag. That was Saturn, Neptune back in Pisces in retrograde. So to me, there's a lot of this interesting period of just the new moons itself, all repeating. Even the full moons are at 13 degrees, but that lunar eclipse we just had just broke that to 12 degrees, and now this is the last new moon at 28 degrees. So So there's a lot about just this last 6 months that we've been working through on top of the many other layers of the last 20 years since we saw the Uranus ingress into Pisces. Or you could look at it from, of course, like Neptune coming into Pisces 2011 into 2012. And we've now seen Neptune leave Pisces. It's like Pisces is just the one thing that just doesn't fully say goodbye. But, this is the new moon that is that signal of goodbye. We will wait for, of course, Mercury to station direct and come out of Pisces. We'll wait for Mars, which is about a month away. Not even. And we're going to move on to extreme different situations in every way. It's kind of weird because it's almost this moment that this new moon is the realization about, well, where does the future go? Of course, we're seeing this sextile to Uranus in Taurus, and that's the last outer planet that needs to shift into a new sign like Gemini, like it did last year, but to really complete the big transformation of the outer planets into air and fire. And for their great alignment this July and into this summer, with that set of eclipses, that'll be changing the world even in a completely opposite sense of what we've been experiencing. So this is a very weird new moon at the same time because the benefics are in square. We have Venus in square to Jupiter, and Venus is in detriment in Aries. It's also sitting there with Saturn and Neptune, and then we're seeing the Chiron and Eris conjunction within 1 minute. Pretty crazy during this new moon, but there's a lot of stuff that Venus is not happy with being here, and it's in square to Jupiter that's exalted in Cancer. So it's taking this, what we desire and want and what we want to go after, what our values are, and go, hey, is that good for you in creating this more foundational journey that you're going on? Like there is this Jupiter in Cancer that's about nourishment, re-nourishment. How do we take care of ourselves better? Are our values aligned with that? We might want something, but is it really good for us? Does it nourish us? Does it take care of us? Does it allow us to take care of ourselves better? So the universe is definitely putting, whether you like it or not, it's not that it's blocking things from you, but it's really truly working in your favor. Whether it's dissipating situations in your life that were never meant to align, or just having you actually realize, oh, you know what? Yeah, that's not going to work in my life. Maybe I thought it would, but that's not. This is definitely a extreme, massive door closing on many, many levels. Decades. You could use the Saturn-Neptune conjunction as the last one, of course, was 4361 BC. Yeah, a 6,400 year closing door. This is the new moon about every door closing. And then the big question of what doors are opening. That's more of, I think, the bigger question. Speaking of questions, Mercury still retrograde, but beginning to slow down enough to not be doing anything really, except there's a lot going on with it being on the North Node here. We've been seeing this all week, and we are going to see it for a week long. We're going to see the station direct on top of Mercury as the sun will ingress into Aries during the equinox, and it's like 5 hours after that. On the 20th, we'll see Mercury station direct on the North Node. This has also been interesting seeing Mercury in opposition to the South Node, which of course is in Virgo, and Virgo, Mercury's the ruler over. So Mercury's already very unhappy being in Pisces. It's at its fall position. And so this new moon almost is so weird because it feels like it's a total contrast to the other world we feel like we can sense, or at least we have the knowing that is opening, that's different than this one, and definitely has better prospects for positivity. And I think that it's a lot like being stuck in a cage and getting comfortable in the cage, and almost like, well, will I be okay subconsciously without realizing it, moving into this new energy? Of course. But, leaving this, framework we've been under for so long, it's almost like being in MK Ultra forever and having your eyeballs open and every kind of psychedelic drug put on you and having to watch the creepiest things, which if you think about the world today, how much of it is actually real? How much of it is AI now? How much of it is programmed? This is a moment for us to close that door. I think one of the better transits during this new moon, and we are going to see throughout this week, and of course with the equinox and finally all planets direct, which might I remind you that all planets, the last time we saw them direct was May 3rd, because on May 4th of 2025 last year, Pluto stationed retrograde. So it's been almost a year. It's been 10 and a half months where we've had retrogrades. So this new moon is like anxious to want to get things going, especially with Mars very close to the North Node still after already made that conjunction and is separating, and having Mercury that really wants to get the hell out of Pisces stationed on the North Node, ready to move forward. And everybody's waiting for Mercury. Every planet's like, come on, Mercury, we all need to move forward. And we're waiting on you, and you're in the worst place. So, but, this new moon is reminding you, like, pack your bags. Because we're all going to be flying faster than we could ever even imagine. And we're going to have to make choices on the fly. We're going to be living in a redefined world. We're going to have to redefine ourselves. And everything that we thought we knew or that we have really attached to spiritually is going to be redefined. I mean, I hate to say it, but that's really what it's going to be. So, what we traditionally have really come accustomed to in our life, the Pisces blows that out. It's the end of the cycle. It's the end of the zodiac. And this is a lot of clearing things out. A lot of stuff that was not meant to be is clearing itself out on its own. This is a new moon about reflection too. Like, what bags are you packing for yourself energetically into this new world? What stuff are you taking with you? But, the ego is going to be our worst enemy, and it always is. But it's got to get reminded here that it's exciting and it's fun to go into the Aries world and to go into battle for the things we desire and want. Pisces has to remind us, though, of where we start journeys in our lives, that what ends up at the very end is different than the way that we go about it. So how we start things definitely also means it's how things come to an end when they do. So it makes you actually process with everything about to be in start mode and reset mode and redefining mode in this week and for the rest of this year and for the rest of our lives, really. Are we going to make the best decisions about how we start those things forward? That's what I think the bigger part of this new moon's about. We have a very good transit that we saw last year, Saturn sextile Pluto. I'm kind of sad this one's going to be leaving here soon. But, it is one to where we really can restructure so much. I mean, but, there is this trying a new way to do things. So no matter what you're doing in your life, even if you think about career right now in your life or the way that work is working, I mean, this is Pluto in Aquarius. It's you're going to have to face your fear of a new, innovative, a different way, a different approach. And when it comes to how you make decisions, when it comes to how you structure things, when it comes to what the rules are, they're all being redefined. Boundaries are being set by who sets them in the new ways. meaning that, this is a time where things are, accountability for the old things are almost like they're not there. Hence, you see the world at war, you see the Epstein files, you see anything. This is actually a very deep connection with Aquarius and Aries. Like, is there accountability when you're you're pushing a boundary that nobody's ever pushed? And who's going to enforce it if nobody's ever pushed it before? Right? It's kind of like, I'm a dad now, so I have kids. It is a weird feeling when it's like, you just drew all over the walls. Like, oh, okay. But that, every kid does that. I guess it would be different if my 2.5-year-old learned how to jump off roofs or something right now. I'd be freaked out. How would you enforce that, It would be different. So it's like we're seeing things in the world that it's boundaries being crossed that have never been crossed before, or they're being crossed differently. How do you enforce that? And so when it comes to the rules, Saturn and Aries, why does it fall? There's no justice. That happens in Libra, where Saturn's exalted. So court systems, fairness, there is none of that at the moment. And what does Pisces teach you here is this is really, to me, the big final stand of, decades here of Pisces that we've experienced is how do you just not let all that bug you and move through things and trust on your spiritual guidance, a higher plan spiritually. And it doesn't mean you're not going to stand up for what's wrong in life, but it's important now to pick your battles. I mean, I think that this is going to be the most important thing we learn moving forward is what battles do we choose and which ones do we avoid by just saying, you know what, that's going to cause too much chaos. That's going to just keep how many more wounds can you take in certain areas? That's where this Chiron Eris conjunction for the last time is bringing up. It's like the irony too is that, let me clear this and I'll use a different color. I'll use purple here to make it clear. So like Chiron and Eris, yeah, they're making their conjunction, but at the same time, they're in semi-square to this Mercury retrograde north node. So what's happening here is like, if you're looking for validation for things that you're wounded about in your ego, especially it might be over fairness. It could be over you not being seen for who you really are, you being incorrectly seen. Anything that triggers that ego wound, right? That there is no amount of data that you have to force yourself to figure out, or, this is a moment for you to make sure that it's like, are you just going to keep picking at the scab of that wound in your ego and cause the discourse, the chaos that Eris brings? Of course, Eris does it for good reason. Chiron, of course, puts us into contact with our deepest wounds to heal them for good reason. But being a North Node Chiron person as I am, you don't have to make your whole life always about that 24/7. Trust me, it's not fun. You don't need to live in your wound 24/7. And I think for this one, it's really basic ego stuff. It's like, stop searching for ways to prove yourself, validate yourself, or get and seek validation for things that really do not matter. This is where you close that off. It doesn't matter anyways, because the whole world's going to change into this new identity, a new world, new situations, new country borders, new countries, wars that are going to change things. I mean, it's not going to be the same anything. So as we pack our bags, it's like, what are we packing? Well, let's pack our soul. Let's pack the memories of things that really were good for us spiritually and the memories of the things that were not good for us spiritually. Let's use the future technologies and the things that are showing themselves at least a glimpse of what the future can look like, and start structuring from those things. And that's where that Pluto-Saturn sextile is finishing here this week, next week. And we saw that last year, but this is where I'm kind of sad. I know we're going to get the nice, great alignment with the outer planets in July with Jupiter. I wish it was with Saturn. With Saturn, it always makes it real. With Jupiter, it's a concept car. And not everybody gets the concept car. So this is really where actually big decisions in your life are going to be extremely connected to great change that are going to throw you into a place you've never been before. The pressure is that you have to make choices, whether you like it or not, to keep avoiding things. That's the other thing this new moon brings up. There are things that you can't avoid anymore. We're at the point to where Neptune's finished in Pisces. This is the last new moon in Pisces that reminds us of the old Pisces energy. I mean, you saw more in Pisces in your life than ever, especially by 2013. There was more planets in Pisces than in any other sign in our lives. Now that the ruler's out, we're getting ready for a conjunction of the Sun and Neptune in the 3 days after this. And Aries, and that's gonna erase the last, everything since 2011. I kind of want to show people some interesting astrology here. So let's put this to 2010. All right. So what is common? There's a little repeating pattern here for this year that I want people to pay attention to. It was the Jupiter and Uranus conjunction here in Aries in 2010. So this is June 2010. Jupiter and Uranus at 0 Aries made a conjunction. Now, why is that important? Well, we just saw Saturn and Neptune meet at 0 Aries. And we also saw them retrograde back before their conjunction, but they made it to 0 and 1, and then 1 and 2 and 1, and then they came back into Pisces. If you actually follow 2010 with Jupiter Uranus, the same thing happened where they went both back into Pisces here September of 2010. And then what happened? A Venus retrograde in Scorpio. That's what's coming up this year, Venus retrograde in Scorpio. The last one, of course, was in 2018 with Uranus making its ingress into Taurus and in opposition right before it retrograded back into Aries. But this is also an interesting thing to see that we're coming into a similar 2010 Venus retrograde, seeing major, one of the bigger gas giants conjunct a outer planet at the same Pisces Aries cusp at the beginning of the chart. So then if you come to the beginning of 2011, that's the year Neptune ingresses into Pisces, but it's also the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction, and we can actually do that really quick here. Let's do transiting Jupiter conjunct Uranus. All right. And there's the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction on Taurus. This thing's so funny. We want to go to the last one. 2011. And that one happened at 27 Pisces. So it's kind of weird. There were 3 of them. There was the 0 Aries one, which we could look at in 2010, right? So that one happened at 0 Aries on June 8th, 2010. And then the second one happened in retrograde in Pisces. And that one happened at 28 degrees where this new moon is. In September on the 18th of 2010. And then we saw the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction again, 27 degrees of Pisces. And it was an interesting time period because if you notice, the sun was in Capricorn, Mars was in Capricorn, so the sun was going to Cazimi Mars, like we saw right before coming into 2026. There's just a lot of interesting parallels here But 2011 is important because that's the year of the ingress of Neptune at 0 of Pisces, and the beginning of this extreme, well, I guess you could say feeling, spiritual feeling, April 4th, 2011. And it was ironic. It was the Sun and Jupiter beginning their conjunction in opposition to Saturn and Libra. And it was Neptune that came into Pisces, and there was Chiron. So what's also been interesting is that this whole time since 2011, there was just some in-between phases of Chiron, of course, moving into Aries at the end of 2018, and then came back into Pisces, and then by 2019, it was Chiron Aries. It wasn't until last year in 2025 that we saw Neptune come into Aries to join with Chiron again. But we spent most of the Neptune cycle in Pisces with Chiron. A lot of it. The first 7 years of it. And now we're back. And now we're going to spend this year, and then Chiron moves into Taurus, and then it moves back into Aries. But when you think about this Chiron conjunction with Eris, it's like Neptune when it's with Chiron, that sucks. You know, it's forcing everybody into massive healing. And if you think about your life and you take it back to pretty much 2010, 2011, everything since then has shifted in the weirdest way. And it's a lot because of this stuff. This new moon and what we're about to go through this week with everything moving into Aries and us getting out of this new moon. I mean, if you just like think about, nobody's really been doing a good job of showing it, so I'll just show it really quick. Oh, fuck. Yeah, here we are. If we just think about these new moons, right? So let's go here. Let's do the new moon. Okay. So the previous one, 28 degrees in Pisces, we just saw. 28 degrees Aquarius right here. 28 Capricorn, 28 Sag, 28 Scorpio, 28 Libra. So we're at a place where, you know, the last 5 new moons, 28. And in Virgo it was 29, and that was the second new moon in Virgo because there was a solar eclipse that happened with that one, but the one prior was a new moon at 0 of Virgo. I mean, like, so if you really think about every new moon since September, weird as fuck. So really it's 6 months. And how weird that was that solar eclipse opposite Neptune at 0 degrees of Aries. Saturn retrograde back into Pisces at 28, where the new moon is now. In many ways, this is us saying, and this is weird new moon. I didn't even mention that about this new moon we're currently in. That if you think about this new moon we're in, it's in the same sign as the North Node and it's not an eclipse. Now, I know that happens, but that's just another oddity. And that means what's coming next in this whole, if you think about what's coming up in this whole next month of this new moon, if you just kind of take these next couple of days, of course, we see Mercury in that North Node, the station of Mercury here on the 19th. Of course, we see the Sun ingress into Aries. We see Mercury station direct on March 20th. We get to the equinox. We have our first Sun-Neptune conjunction this weekend in Aries, really setting this whole Neptune-Aries cycle. We see the Chiron moves in front of Eris and will stay there. We'll never retrograde back over Eris, and we're going to have to wait 50 more years till that conjunction, and it won't happen in Aries. It'll happen in Taurus, the next one. And then we have the Sun-Saturn that we're approaching in less than a week. And that's pretty heavy. Mercury will just be coming off that North Node. Pluto will be at 5 degrees the first time in our life. Every planet, of course, will be direct starting on the 20th. And it's this whole month where you have all the planets direct. We're moving into completely new territory. The sun is solidifying the Neptune and Aries transit. The sun is going to conjunct and solidify the Saturn and Aries transit. And of course, we have not seen these two play out the way they have since 4361 BC. And it was about the territories in which humans started to migrate and take over territories. That's actually the prehistoric history of it. Look at the way the world with the wars is set up right now. So, you got to pack your bags spiritually light. We're going to be defining things, and it's going to be moving faster than you could ever even think. Especially as we approach, just in a month's time, is the beginning of Uranus making its ingress into Gemini and the fourth turning beginning. And we're going to be moving so rapid in pace. And we get a month and a half here of all the planets direct. It'll be May 6th when Pluto retrogrades. So if you think about that, let's throw this here. The retrograde of Pluto is May 6th. Yeah, May 6th this year. So we're going to have all planets direct until May 6th. Are you going to show that retrograde, bitch? Of course, I had to move it like 1 second. There you go. So everything's going to be moving direct until May 6th. Now, I always think that the Pluto station retrograde doesn't stop the energy. It keeps going, and especially we're going to see that big Mars, Saturn, Neptune conjunction just weeks prior. That's something we've never seen in our lives before. But my point is that everything that is setting us up for this new moon, it's literally about the wildest ride we've ever been on and the newest carving out of a life and a world that we've never seen. Uranus will already be in Gemini by the time that Pluto retrogrades, and all planets won't be direct anymore. So this is the best throwing forward moment to prepare for this new moon in Pisces. Of course, because the next new moon, if we go back to new moons here, the next new moon in Aries is going to be at 27 degrees, and it breaks that 28 cycle that we've been in since Libra. It's a new moon conjunct Chiron. We've seen that with a total solar eclipse back in 2024. And that was directly over the U.S., especially in Texas, that created the 2017 kind of X marks the spot. And so I see huge weird shit happening in Texas by the time. That's why I went down to Texas in 2024 during that eclipse. And I could feel it then. There's going to be some major shit going on. That Mars-Saturn conjunction with Neptune and Mercury, that's a lot. Now, right there, if Venus was in there, that would pretty much take the cake to the 2013. I mean, it's really interesting because I'm showing you this stuff future-wise because you can't keep thinking about the past. It's over. Right? There's no fixing the past anymore. There's, of course, reflecting on it, but if we were to count Neptune, Mercury, Mars, Saturn, Eris, if you want to count that, Chiron, the moon and the sun, I mean, that is 1, 2, 3, 4, let's not count Eris, 5, 6, 7 planets. Now that is tied, if I remember right, in 2013. Let's look. March 1st, 2013. Let's see. We have to wait for that new moon to come in. Let's move the days. That's pretty close. Neptune, Moon, Mercury, Chiron, Venus, Sun, Mars, Uranus. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's the most. 8. because Venus is there. By the way, that was with Mercury retrograde, exactly where it's at right now. So that's another interesting, like, repeating pattern here. Is this Mercury retrograde is stationing with the North Node exactly when we had the most planets in Pisces and the most planet in one sign that you would ever see in your life. But if you want to count Eris, then it is tied. And we are moving into opposite of this. This was the beginning of when everything started to feel like, I remember you could look at my horoscopes for this on YouTube. I was not doing well. Even as an astrologer, I was like, this shit is fucking nasty. This is too much Pisces. I feel like I'm not even on the reality anymore. There's no more reality. And doing all my horoscopes in a way that was like, hey, we ain't in Kansas anymore. Back then, and never stopped. But Aries, where we're going to be at, is so different. It's fire. It's cardinal. It's got a direction. This has no direction. So we got to think about this. Mercury stationing on the North Node is like, does it really find any direction? No. So anybody telling you otherwise is kind of dumb. It's little nuanced little messages from spirit kind of giving you some like guidance through signs and just like reminders to not do something stupid. That's it. It's not a clear path. That's a red flag. That's all it is. But if I take us now back to that new moon time, April 17th, 2026, right? I mean, that's, if you want to count Eris, that's tying. Of course, Venus isn't there, so the one in Pisces definitely wins. But this is second place. And this is going to be what the next new moon from this new moon is. So this new moon is the one that says goodbye to everything we knew. Everything that we visualized the world would be, because it's like the reality check of Aries being like, nope, this is the actual reality, and this is where it's really going, and this is the direction. And our heads are going in the direction of that way. Right? And it's going to be extreme and edgy. Not, I feel like I'm fucking so high I can't think right now. That's what we're moving out of. But it also means there's an energy that's coming into this planet that it's very pushy. It's very, you got to make your move now. It's a lot of like, the more you hesitate, the worse it gets. In Pisces, you can get away with throwing it to the side for a day, a week, a month, a year, or even a decade. You can't do that anymore. You know, in Aries, it has to get done right away. And the more that you don't do it, then, you know, you take a bad risk of being able to have something catastrophic happen in many ways because of the fact that somebody else, right? There's competition in Aries. Aries is about competition. It's about ego. It's about, it has hero energy. It has definition. It has, where do we find our strength? It's, courage is Leo. So don't get that one twisted. It's confidence in Aries. Sometimes too much confidence. Saturn and Neptune are going to try and rain on all this a month from now. But with Mars and Saturn meeting up, and Mars being the ruler of Aries, and meeting up with Saturn, that's at fall, Mars is like, control? Good luck. New moon on Chiron, I'm going to heal my damn wounds because I'm going to do what the fuck I want. And there is no more Pisces left. You can't count that North Node. That North Node's just trying to steer us to remember to be compassionate. Remember to think of the spiritual. Do you think it'll really be in that space with Mercury just coming off Neptune in Aries? With Mars approaching Saturn, with a new moon on Chiron? No, this is going to be very extreme and volatile. You need to prepare now that this is going to be the most intense month and a half you've ever experienced in your life. And that's what's setting us up for from May 6th through April 12th, when Pluto goes out of bounds and when we come into the eclipse energies and we see all the outer planets aligned, of the most extreme month and a half of building this new direction and the whole world re-identifying and changing in a way we've never even dreamed of before. So this new moon is your last moment where it feels like, I guess things are going to happen. It won't be that way anymore. So for some people, their worst fears might come true, meaning, the world's going to be really fast and things are going to actually happen fast and they're going to be in our face, meaning like it won't be feeling anymore like it's just on our phone and on a screen and far in the background. That's gone. Things are going to show up in your face, meaning at your front door. To use William Lilly, like, that's the front door, Aries. So it's not happening in the basement. It's not happening on the roof. It's happening at your front door. I see many karmic situations clearing now for new dharma, I don't think people have even had the concept yet of like, we are writing a new code, and also there's a new code of the reality that's being like embedded. And we're at that moment right before on this new moon. This Mercury stationing direct turns it all on with the equinox that's coming on the 20th of March. But to me, to see the next new moon have tie-breaking, or dare I say that, but second place of the most planets in one sign, and both of those, the 2013 Pisces stellium and the 2026 Aries stellium, have the rulers of that sign in them. This one's way different because it's Mars-based. It's in Aries. It's directional. It's cardinal. It's fire. It's an extreme. It's intense. In Pisces, I feel like I'm not even here. And everything's kind of floating somewhere. And where is it all really going? And, you feel like the whole universe is stoned. That energy of feeling like energy's stoned, or that, if anything, it's like the opposite. It's almost like the sun is going to inject itself with testosterone here. It was actually Chris Patecki, him and I did an interview. It's still on my YouTube from 2012. And it's called The Astrologer's Tale. And him and I used to joke that when Neptune came into Pisces in 2011, like we felt it. And I think we were actually smoking. We were stoned at the time. And it was Chris who came up with like, Neptune in Pisces is the sun being stoned. And that always stuck with me through Neptune and Pisces. It's so true. But in Aries, it's the sun injecting itself with freaking, and this will be the sun exalted, by the way, too. But it's the sun injecting itself with testosterone, masculine, fire, cardinal, war, preparing itself for war, not getting stoned to relax and just, we'll figure that out next week. That energy is leaving on this new moon. This is your last moment of experiencing that. And it might feel like it's extreme in that energy, even though that is going to be quickly shifted because things are going to happen faster than you realize in the next week. And pretty much by this April 17th moment, that it's not even that we ain't in Kansas anymore. What reality are we actually in? And this is the one we're in, and we have to face it. It almost feels like we haven't had to face reality yet. Even if it is fake, even if it does have all this crazy shit, that energy leaves and the masks come off. And we are exposed with what actually was hiding itself and have to face all of that shit. So, this is not just some normal new moon. How are we as a collective, and especially light workers, going to shift this world to the right direction? I'm going to show something because I haven't shown this yet to people. Let's do the Pluto-Uranus conjunction in 64. Pluto conjunct Uranus, 64. 65. So Pluto-Uranus, the Uranus-Pluto conjunction, the opposition to Saturn-Chiron, that was a massive seed of the world, and that's the beginning of this light worker reprogramming the program, the idea of that, the hippie movement. But with Uranus going to now finally be in the trine to Pluto many times over, but starting July 17th, it's Uranus in Gemini trine Pluto in Aquarius. It's technological, breakthrough ways of communication and language and new technology, which is so against the hippie movement. Although I know some people who are spiritual hippies like me who love technology and are using it. But that's, I think, going to be the hard thing to accept, is that the hippie movement saw it as this organic, kind of natural way, Virgo. But in order for that to happen, the technologies that are available to us and the more futuristic tech and the new discoveries and facts and, inventions that we create with our mind, and very Uranus and Gemini is always technological advances that are extreme. That's how we do it. But that's a trigger for the spiritual community. And I'm trying to show people why. So like big conjunctions are one thing, but when you see the aspects that come, whether it's the first square or whether it's the first trine or whether it's the first opposition or the only opposition from the conjunction, it's always in different energies that go against the core nature of the conjunction. But it's the way to make the conjunction happen. So it's very opposite of the way that, people see things because they're addicted to the conjunction. So, and this is what's hard. Just, I'm probably not the only person that's been saying it in the astrology community, but like, AI astrology actually is better than most astrologers. But you read every astrology org's magazine, which I will read and pay dues to see, and it's like, you have all these astrologers saying how bad it is, or they've never built it. They tried it in ChatGPT or Grok. They didn't actually build it as a workflow. They didn't actually build it. It's like we're at a place to where you have the astrologers in this community afraid of the tech that's going to change astrology, change human design, change everything. how else are you going to get through this system? You're going to have to know how to code your way out. You have to know language, Uranus and Gemini, with new technology. I mean, as I'm sitting here doing this with you guys right now, this project finally got done for me, thank God. Because prices for my AI avatar stuff went way up, and I was starting to bleed in my costs. And had to find where the leaks were. And man, some of these companies now are charging on their APIs even if the webhook didn't connect, but it made an attempt. So, you know, and emailed just now all 886 people that are on Spirit Dial about the new updates. We're in a world to where I think I could show this graph of how many people develop with AI compared to people who use AI, right? So it's like 1 in 6 people globally are using generative AI, while professional development with AI is growing at a smaller, specialized scale. So the closer number of the development of it, people actually creating technology with it and use cases and actually, so generative is one part, but actual creation, so creating product, changing software for astrology or any spiritual tech, the number of people actively developing AI models is significantly smaller than the population of users. However, prosumers, those creating content with AI, has risen. So content is not the same. From what I've seen as of recent, it's still at 1%. So there's 1% of the population out there, spiritual too, that are going to help change this world. Most people don't want to figure it out. I mean, when a lot of these graphs are like AI in the workforce, like how many people needed to upskill to use AI? They had to learn a significant amount. Oh, okay, to just talk to AI in a chat bot. Not now. I hate Google AI. It's the worst of all time, but whatever. it doesn't even understand what I'm fucking asking. That's why, I tell everybody in basic AI shit, like, you have to use reasoning in AI. You cannot just use auto, or you're just retarded. They actually intentionally want you to use auto because it makes their costs go down and they could just give you slop. That's why you have to have a pro account to even use pro to actually get some actual deep reasoning here. And it's kind of sad that they don't allow even a plus user to use thinking and use all 4 versions of it. So right now I'm just using thinking, and you could configure that, and I'm using heavy effort. Right? So it's actually spending the time. Might take longer. And of course, this is the problem, is like most people this is what they think of using AI, or they're dumb and they think they built something in their chat like this. And this is not development. This is not creating anything new. I think there was an X post about this recently. And hopefully this inspires people to go, wait, what? You're missing out on everything to change the world. Of course, no, it's not there. Fucking, it might be in my bookmarks here. Fucking, might have been way down here. Which most of my bookmarks on X are of AI stuff. I don't even really care about anything globally story-wise anymore because it's mostly AI. Anyway. Oh, let's see if we got the... Yeah, it's up to, like, from what this is saying, it's about 3.6% of people. So it's gone up a little. But you got to realize, of all global users in the world that use AI, and only 16% of the world uses it, that out of that number, 3.6% are creating actual things with it. No, I'm not talking about you made a picture or, ooh, you made something. If you go into apps now, this is the new app store. Photoshop that's connected in here. Expedia, Shopify. Look at it in lifestyle. There's a new one that I just saw. Tarot. Now it's horrible. Connect it to your ChatGPT. If you're not in this, what are you doing? So your Wix website ain't worth shit. Your WordPress is over. Nobody's on Google anymore. So if you really want to take, and software could be completely reverse engineered with AI now. So you think you're safe behind your software program, you're screwed. Well, let's go back to the chart. So by July 17th, with every planet direct and everything like that, like this is that moment where, that Mars-Uranus conjunction, it's coming at the end of June, beginning of July. So this new moon horoscope to you from me, the Leo King, is you got to get your ass in gear now. This is like whatever you're clearing at this moment on the new moon in Pisces, it's your last moment. Like I didn't even get like sick, but like my throat was dry. I fucking had body aches for the last 2 days. It was like I was like knocked the fuck out. But I'm not sick, which is really weird. But I could barely get out of bed. I could barely do anything. I'm like, is it just I'm just knocked the fuck out? Have I just pushed myself too far? I think I just hit my exhaustion levels. I've been just going nonstop. So to think that we're going into a place where you're going to have to be running the whole time, and that's what the new world is for the next 8 years, minimum, running. It's been said just recently, too, that the world will be for those that are neurodivergents in the future now. Because, you know, to stay focused on tasks that are very much like this and getting out of, like, your idea of what work is. I mean, if you think about all the 2020 alignments and what this 2026 Saturn-Neptune last conjunction was about, so the last 6 years was about the end of the workforce. And they made up COVID, as I always said, in order for you to get ready to surrender your job. And see if you would do things to keep traveling or to go back to your job. That was all the tests. Now, they tell you every day, but you have to watch the finance section of the news to just see how many jobs keep getting taken away. Or businesses now, if you don't adopt AI at the job, then we're going to fire you. That's been the last 2 weeks. So I think that the way through all of this is to not be in the system, to be the hacker, Pluto and Aquarius, to be the pirate. That's why I did, Shattered Reality in 2021 with that Jupiter-Saturn conjunction at the end of 2020, and then the Uranus-Saturn square, and then us coming into that Jupiter-Neptune by 2022, and then Jupiter-Uranus in 2023, right? Like, and then of course Pluto fully ingressing into Aquarius 2024, and 2025 being the 1 year without a big conjunction, and 2026 being the year of the conjunction, the last one. But actually they were conjunct within less than half a degree, just not exact. So this new moon is the end of that old world. And if I were to show up here and tell you otherwise, I would be a bad astrologer. Like, if you're still in the system, because everything's moving into this new energy, meaning that just even if you think of just everything since, just take it on the simple basis of the last 23 years since Uranus made its ingress into Pisces. Like, that world is over. Then take the last 6,400 years, because we're moving galactically into a new quarter. Nothing that you think and how you were raised to think about the world will hold up anymore. Even hippies. The new hippie will be the hacker. It's been actually nice. I've only seen like 3 dudes and a chick in the spiritual community that get this and are fucking doing it. And of course, they're people I really like that I'm like, they got that on their own too. Shit. The rest are just wasting their time on a podcast talking about fucking like why they want to be in a fucking threesome. Like, you think that shit's going to matter in Aries? If Michael Luton were still here, he'd already tell you that the Pluto in Aquarius, it does make all of our relationships and stuff really form in different ways. If you look at the last time Pluto was in Aquarius, of course, during the Revolutionary War, George Washington himself was a stepfather, but back then you weren't a stepdad. You were the father of, or those were your orphaned children. So you weren't a stepdad and those weren't stepkids. Those were orphaned kids, even if the dad died or whatever, of those children and the wife that you took. So it's kind of interesting that, you know, like the way that you look at presidents today, oh, they should be married. They have to have a dog. They had to, right? Like the first president of the United States, like didn't have his own kids. He was a Freemason. And he got married right after he was done being a captain in the British Army after the French Indian War. And she got him into high society because she was rich. And then she made him all the connections that got him to then, of course, be chosen to become, in 1775, the commander of the U.S. Continental Army and Navy, which then, of course, led him to win the Revolutionary War. But it's not for, 6 years later till in the Constitutional Convention that he is chosen again to become the President of the United States, which then years after that is finally put into the first Congress in New York City to become the first president. And then that first president that he becomes is the one that actually gets the Bill of Rights put into the Constitution because the Constitutional Convention didn't get enough votes for it. So he's the one who made sure that happened. So nothing is going to go smooth. Relationships are all going to be very different and weird. Of course, there's going to be a lot of Neptune activity here in Aries, and so that's holy war shit. And so I know a lot of us want it to go away, but as an astrologer, there is no signs of it letting up, especially over the next month and a half. And the best way, and I'm not afraid to say it, but get out of your religions. They're fueling him. And that's what I have to say about this new moon, and I hope that it gave you some guidance for what's ahead, what you're packing up spiritually to leave, what we're heading into, which there's a lot of things that are hard to define. But if you were to use astrology and be hermetic and be balanced, you would say war. And that Jupiter in Cancer is going to do everything it can to make us find that safe spot or how to take care of ourselves through these times. But the fact that Jupiter comes into Leo in the end of June into the July time, right? And then it opposes Pluto into that August period is going to fuel this even crazier. And so like the safe place for you is away from falling into the last spell they're going to do to get you trapped into this system. And the same way that the lie of COVID was. That's why I told everybody to get out of the system then. That Saturn and Pluto and Capricorn on January 12th, 2020 was that's your guidepost of like exiting the system, because that system now is what the whole machine for the war is built upon. The corporate job you work for, the public school system, all these systems feed it. Your retirement, your 401k, the stock market, it all fuels the war. The petrodollar goes over, then the UAE and everybody then reinvests into America, into the stock market, into companies. And that's how the whole gamut works. And that's what your corporate job that you feel your safety and security in, even though you're going to feel more unsafe because of what's happening in the world now, is what's fueling it. You know, I just saw an Instagram post I just posted about these people that are literally meeting up in RVs and creating their own like communities in the middle of fucking America, right? And they're having like the time of their lives. What's crazy is like 2019 into 2020 as all that shit was happening and I was predicting what was about to happen, and I'm like on a little edge. Like I just put out, for years telling people that there's going to be a plague, but it's going to be not a real plague, and they're going to use it to control people and, all that shit that I said, right? And I'm like having these visions of 2026 into 2027 of like people out in the desert, like having like a rave in this higher frequency energy, not involved with all the chaos of being stuck in the system. And the fact that that just showed up kind of blew my mind, because I'm like, I really didn't know what to think of it at that time. And I'm sure people can find me saying that in videos over the last 6 years. But I just saw a glimpse of what I've been seeing, and I'm like, ooh. I mean, if you look at what's happening to home, the lowest amount of sales of homes since 2008. The number one term searched in Google about homes over the last 2 months has been, how do I get out of my mortgage? The last time those were the same search terms was 2008. Car industry, can't sell cars. Repos are the highest. 20% of U.S. homes, households are defaulting by 30 days or more on credit card debt, car loans, and mortgage loans. 20%. These are the same numbers that we saw right before the Great Recession. The only way they're going to keep it alive from moving into the depression that they are too afraid to actually admit we've been in, that they just keep pumping money, is the war. An all-out one. And that's what they did with World War II. Look at the fucking data. I would hate for that to repeat again, but the astrology and the history is repeating again. So, dare I say that we're going to go through that again? Yeah. I've warned every single person on High Vibe 1,000,000 times over. If you have a kid 18 to 26, a son, you wipe their existence on the internet. You get rid of their cell phone. You get rid of their social medias, and you prepare by having them untraced from this. If you look up the Selective Service and the training they did, because when the U.S. government declared an emergency in 2020 for the bullshit lie of COVID, I brought this up a long time ago, that always activates the Selective Service, and that office got a lot of money, and it updated its systems in 2021, 2022, and 2023 by using Snapchat, and now the U.S. government is the one that installed the new version of TikTok from the Chinese, and the U.S. government's getting a $15 billion cut from that. It's fucking weird, from China or ByteDance. But, you know, all these kids that are in that age group, with also the NDAA that was just passed in Congress, the National Defense Authorization Act, during Joe Biden, they said we're going to do automatic selective service. And it was during this administration and this Congress, they passed that finally. Just a week ago. So, what is the Mercury stationed on the North Node in Pisces? To very much just be clear, it's the writing is on the fucking wall. Are you an idiot to deny it? That's so Mercury Pisces. The writing is on the wall. It gets a little bit more nuanced with things like fucking BB being on AI. It's like, okay, they're for sure doing that. But why? Is he dead? Or are they going to just try and do that to set everybody up to saying he's dead and showing how happy they are in order to use that against people? That's where it gets into that tricky. Like Mercury is the trickster. It gets really tricky. Like why they did that with Kamala Harris. They used AI for half or more of her fucking speeches. Of the crowds, they would have her speak like on a green screen, or that whole hangar situation. I mean, that there is no side that's better than the other. They're both fucking retarded. They both have sold all of themselves to the worst things for the people of America and the world. When you have Hillary Clinton saying Trump's doing a great job last week, okay, and you have Erica Kirk going around, that's a bad sign of things to come. I'm not here to down on anybody's party here, but I'm here to just remind you that Aries is going to put it into our face. And don't you think it's not? Ironically, and this might really be my, I got to do this. I just stumbled upon this because I got it. There was some dude, there's so many people right now just trying to send me shit. I get that all the time, but I'm like, I don't care. And he was like, you know, Vedic astrology and sidereal is the only way. And it's like, oh, I use both. I like both. I'm not a one system person. Right? But so I was sending him about the solar calendar because he obviously had no idea about tropical astrology at all. And also that there's no drifting in solar calendars, and the lunar calendars, there's drifting. But what's really crazy is the solar calendar of the Baha'i. It's the solar calendar consisting of 19 months and 4 or 5 intercalary days, with the new year at the moment of the northern spring equinox. The first year as this is dating is 1844 CE, right? And the moment of the vernal equinox in the northern hemisphere is determined using the location of Tehran. And so you have to remember that this is where, especially where solar calendars and, astrologers in the Middle East, which were some of the best, if it wasn't for astrologers in the Middle East, there would be no astrology, especially during the holy wars and right before them and stuff like that, because the Christians got so crazy. Right? But if you actually think about some of their solar calendars, it's kind of interesting that, that Baha'i calendar was synchronized to the Gregorian calendar by starting the year at sunset on March 20th, regardless of when the vernal equinox technically occurs, meaning that the extra day of a leap year occurred simultaneously in both calendars. Right, the Universal House of Justice selected Tehran, the birthplace of the Baha'u'llah, who is an Iranian religious leader who founded the faith, as the location in which the time and date of the vernal equinox is determined according to astronomical tables from reliable sources. The other thing I want to mention, and why I showed you all 2011, 2010, and the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction going over zero Aries, because that was the beginning of the Arab Spring, and of course, the stuff we saw of us wanting to possibly go into Iran the last time. Also, Iran is an Aries nation. The Ayatollah was an Aries. Then you really start breaking down a lot of the solar calendar stuff, and it all connected to the equinox, and it's based off Tehran, which is the middle of everybody's news feed right now. So this next week, this next month especially, to think that it's just going to go away is fucking insanity. Or to look at the astrocartography of a lot of the big planetary aspects we're going to be having, going through all different places, but that's just part of it. You need all these other little things. So if you think about it, like when you think of the Gregorian calendar, we use UTC time, it's like Greenwich Mean Time. The other solar calendar uses Tehran. Right. So it just made me like start thinking in a whole new way. It's like that calendar contains many symbolic meanings and allusions, including connections to prophecy of the Bab about the next manifestation of God, termed He whom God shall make manifest. What's the Universal House of Justice? It sits in Israel. Is a 9-member supreme ruling body of the Baha'i faith envisioned by the Baha'u'llah, the founder, an institution that could legislate on issues not already addressed in the Baha'i writings, providing flexibility. Okay. I've never looked into this, but I'm just saying that there was an election on April 29th, 2023, and its members reside in Haifa, Israel, on the slope of Mount Carmel. The seat of the Universal House of Justice. And what does that thing look like? A fucking White House. With all the stars around it. It looks like Washington, D.C. on a fucking hill. It looks like a crack rock on a hill. I used to love that fucking expression. But to me, it's like, there's something there. Especially the Sun-Neptune conjunction. Something. By delegates consisting of the members of the Baha'i National Spiritual Assembly. It has no clergy. They carry out the affairs of the community. It used to be in Iran. Here's one in New Delhi. I'm telling you that there's a whole other world. And it's the occult that runs it. Because they understand it. So, I think that's the other irony of this moment. Is how many people are so... Like, you create religion in order to be afraid of it. So then you don't pay attention to it. And then you make everybody fight over their religions. This shit's tripping me out right now. I just am like, what? You gotta be kidding me. The Rose Garden. The fuck is that? And this was the dude that created it in Tehran. Oh, man. There's a whole other world out there. What's the revelation? During imprisonment in the Saya Shal, he had several mystical experiences in which he received his mission as a manifestation of God, the promised one heralded by the Bab. Baha'is view the drawing of Baha'u'llah's spiritual vision as the beginning of fulfillment of the Bab's prophecy regarding him who God shall make manifest. The inseparable nature and unity of the twin revelations of the Bab and the Baba'ullah are why Baha'is consider both faiths as forming one complete religious entity, and the reason the 1844 declaration of the Bab is considered the starting date of that faith. Banishment from Persia. This was a drawing and done in 1853 here. I can't read any of that, but I wish there was more into that prophecy. I mean, this is kind of weird that his journey takes him into Baghdad, of course, through Syria, which we bombed and done all that, then up in Constantinople, the Ottoman Empire, and then into Alexandria, into fucking, what's that, Port Sand, and then into Israel, and then in exactly where it's at now. This is the prison he was incarcerated. Doesn't look too bad. Oh, so there's a mansion that he had with the same rose stars. An aerial view of the gardens around the shrine. It doesn't matter if you're Middle Eastern, Israeli, American, Greek. They're all using some of this crazy shit. The concept of God is monotheistic, belief in one deity. And it's the source of all revelation, eternal, omniscient, omnipresent, and almighty. Very this is like the Middle Eastern Freemasons, basically. The prophets of God should be regarded as physicians whose task is to foster the well-being of the world and its peoples. Little wonder then if the treatment prescribed by the physician in this day should not be found to be identical with that which he prescribed before. How could it be otherwise when the ills affecting the sufferer necessitate at every stage of his sickness a special remedy? In like manner, every time the prophets of God have illuminated the world with the resplendent radiance of the day star of divine knowledge, they have invariably summoned its people to embrace the light of God through such means as being, or as best befitted the exigencies of the age in which they appeared. The process of progressive revelation of God's eternal covenant, the promise that every divine teacher makes with his followers regarding the next manifestation whom the Creator will send to guide them. That prophecies pertaining to this great covenant are found in scriptures of all religions, with every manifestation prophesying about the next one and even others to come. As for their responsibility in this covenant, the followers of each religion have the duty to carefully investigate with an open mind whether a person claiming to be the promised new messenger of their faith does or does not spiritually fulfill relevant prophecies. And this goes into the claim of being several messiahs converging in one person is understood by Baha'is as being a spiritual symbolic fulfillment rather than a literal fulfillment of Masonic and the prophecies of past faiths. The understanding is based upon the teachings regarding the oneness of God's manifestation. It's fulfilling prophecies of Jewish, Christian, Islamic, Zoroastrian, Hindu, and Buddhist scriptures. This is just the Middle Eastern Freemasons. This is some Revelation writing. Queen Victoria in 1860 shown here a few years prior to receiving a tablet addressed to her. But you know what? There was that whole story of alien.gov. It's not working yet, but story. The White House today registered alien.gov aliens.gov and alien.gov. And the Department of War is the one tasked to put all of this stuff out, right? And this idea of oneness is very Aries, like one Messiah that covers all religions. You put those pieces together. On that note, I hope you have a very interesting and good new moon, and that you say goodbye to everything you thought you remembered about this world, because it is over. And, well, if you're on High Vibe, you see me every day, but next time I see you on YouTube out there, you'll remember who was telling you this the whole time for so long. Adios.